welcome back to another episode of Music is the Glue with your hosts, Tony and Smitty.
Peace.
What's up, brother? How are you doing, man?
What's going on, Tony? How you doing, brother?
I'm good. You know, usual week, not nearly enough time to listen to records because people expect you to like make money and pay your bills. And
Right.
I've really got to win the lottery at some point so I can stop doing that.
What was the last record you listened to?
Last I listened to David Bowie, Let's Dance.
Let's Dance. Okay.
Last night. So yeah, I mean, you get Nile Rodgers influence there. You know, David Bowie decided he wanted to make an album with hits on it, and he went to Nile Rodgers and said, "Help me out," and they made this crazy great album. So that was it. What about you?
The last one I listened to was Marvin Gaye. What's going on? I've been listening to Marvin for the last few days. One of those albums that never get old.
I was gonna say it's a shame you couldn't pick something great.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, this week went super slow to me. It was like one of the slowest weeks I can remember.
Well, let's have some fun. Let's make time go here. Let's talk about some music. On our show today, we've got a great deep dive for you.
Yeah.
Two groups who were at completely different points in their careers, and then an unlikely collaboration happened, and it changed the course, really, of both of their histories. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's fair to say, what do you think, Smitty, that it changed kind of the course of music at that time and how it was seen?
Yeah, it definitely changed the course of music. I mean, just remembering that time when it was going on. Of course, we didn't realize then. We kind of saw it changing, but we didn't realize how epic it was. But now looking back, oh yeah, it definitely changed music.
Yeah, so we're excited to talk about that. I mean, at the end of the day, this thing saved one of these bands' careers.
Yeah, it was toilet.
Yeah, totally. But before we get to that, the feature we like to start out with is Tony and Smitty's A to Z. And if you haven't checked out another one of our podcasts, it's pretty simple. We both collect records, and we bring in a record that starts either the artist or the band name, something has that letter. And we're pretty early in this thing. We're only up to the B's right now. So you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So the record I picked this week, my B record, is one of the greatest ever. I'm holding Babyface, his debut album.
Come on.
Tender Lover. What you know about that, Tony? Tender Lover.
Again, I got to give props to my wife again, because Babyface is somebody, I knew the name, I knew he was great,
right?
But I wasn't super familiar with his stuff. And then she came along, and now we have several of his albums, including that one in the collection, and getting to listen to that. I mean, Whip Appeal, you know, I mean,
oh man,
such a good song. And then, I mean, yeah, so I don't know a lot, so I'm excited to hear what you're going to share about Babyface.
So, I mean, so he was in the group The Deal. I don't know if you remember that group. They had a couple of hits. The number one hit they had was Two Occasions.
Yep. I think we've got the album that's on.
Yeah.
Thanks to my wife.
Yeah. So that was the album. That was the group that he was in. He did a lot of the songwriting for them. And then when he released his debut, at the time, you know, we really didn't know what was going on in the music industry, unless you bought like little magazines, but they were kind of late, you know. So when he released this, it was amazing from the moment I heard it, especially that Whip Appeal. Oh my gosh.
That was so good.
If that wasn't on your slow jam mixtape, I don't know what you were doing. But there's so many hits on this. And of course, I think he wrote pretty much all of the records. So this record was released in 1989. I can't remember what the lead single was, but of course, the main hit that I loved on it was Whip Appeal. I think everybody loved that one. I think it's a consensus number one on that one.
Yeah.
But there's so many hits. Of course, It's No Crime. I love that song.
It's a great one.
Tender Lover. I mean, I could go on and read all of the songs. They were all just great. It was released on LaFace Records, which was the record company he formed with his partner, L.A. Reid, who would go on to sign so many great artists like Usher and Outkast.
It's great. I mean, even if, like, for me at that time, I was kind of on the fringe of R&B. I didn't know a lot about it, but man, I knew the names L.A. Reid and Babyface because they were all over the place.
Yeah. He has such a distinct sound to his music, and you recognize it in all the other hits he's wrote for many, many artists, like our favorites, Bobby Brown and Boyz II Men, Whitney Houston, just so many people. But this album, I listened to it today, and it's like I'd never heard it before. It's such a great album. I'll never get sick of this.
Nice.
Definitely might be in my top 20 debut albums of all time.
Oh.
It really may be.
I mean, that's strong. That's strong. But he's worthy.
Yeah, and he released this, and he never looked back.
You got to love that too. I mean, because so many artists, they come out with maybe a big debut album, and then it's like they used all their good stuff. Yeah, and so exactly. It takes him a couple more albums to get to him, but that never seemed to be an issue for him.
No, never. He never runs out of material. Babyface, Kenny Emmons.
Love it. Love it.
Love it.
All right.
What about you? What do you got?
Well, I'm going to make it pretty simple for you to give you the taste of what my B album is going to be. And if you follow me on Instagram or anything, you've probably seen when I post pictures when I get new tattoos. And this is not new. I've had it for a long time. But my B artist.
I know what it is. I know what it is already.
Yeah. Beastie Boys, License to Ill.
Oh, yeah.
I went through I had a lot of good B choices. And I looked at that Babyface album before so I'm glad we didn't have the same album.
Yeah.
But Beastie Boys, License to Ill, whether you're a fan of these guys or not, you cannot argue with the impact that this record had.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. So, I mean, obviously, if I think anybody who knows anything about this kind of music, you think about the Beastie Boys, and you got to fight for your right to party. I mean, it's just,
absolutely.
That's the big one. But I mean, No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
Yes.
She's Crafty. It's just hit after hit after hit. And again, it's a debut album. It came out in 1986. So much like Babyface, just blasted onto the scene.
And never looked back.
Yeah. I mean, it's the first rap LP that topped the Billboard 200 chart, and it was the second one to get a platinum certification. I'm not going to say if you know the first one, then you know something about our deep dive that's coming up in a few minutes. Okay, yeah. But I won't say. It was one of the Columbia Records fastest selling debut records to date. It's certified diamond. That's 10 million copies in the U.S. I mean, huge. And I thought this is kind of cool. I had to skip ahead to my notes. 1998, it was selected as one of the Source's 100 best rap albums. It's the only album by a Jewish hip-hop act to receive 5 mics from the Source.
You know what? I never thought about that, but yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I didn't either. When I read that, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah. But what's kind of sad and crazy is it's a huge album, big success, but it was their only album from Def Jam in Columbia because... they had the falling out with Rick Rubin and left and went to Capitol Records. And I guess, somewhere along the way, I probably knew this, but I guess I had forgotten it. I forgot that if you know anything about heavy metal and rock and roll and Slayer, I mean, it's a big name in that world. So Kerry King, who is in Slayer, actually is on this album. He plays lead guitar on Fight for Your Right and No Sleep Till Brooklyn.
I never knew that.
And it makes a lot of sense because Rick Rubin was actually producing Slayer's album at that time, Rain in Blood. Yeah, so he got him to come in and play guitar on it, which I thought was kind of great. But that's another thing I love about the Beastie Boys. They're musicians. I mean, they play. Like when they used to appear on like David Letterman and stuff, I mean, they sang, Sabotage or whatever the song might be, but they're also playing the instruments. And I just thought, because they started out as a punk band really, and I always thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, the full album cover, I can't get it all on the screen here, but I'll bring up a picture maybe. Okay. I just love opening the dual, kind of run it by. I mean, it's just... Even the artwork.
Everybody knows that album cover is so recognizable.
Yeah, and I love it. If you've never noticed this before, so when you look on the tail artwork, here, let me get this up here. Now you got to hold it up to a mirror to really appreciate it, but where are you? This little thing right here, hold that up to a mirror and it says, "Eat me."
You know what? I never knew that. Are you serious? How did I not know that?
So that's even then, I mean, they weren't known for being the most mature guys in the world. So even in their album artwork on their first
fun. They were having fun.
So that's my B.
I gotta say, hey, I'm sorry to cut you off, but Paul Revere was my favorite. I love that song.
Killer song. I mean, and the samples on this one were great. And then they came back with Paul's Boutique. And I mean, I can't remember the ridiculous amount, but I think that album still, I don't think it's the most, but it's one of some, like the most samples used on any album.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And they pull some great ones. So so that's my B.
Yeah, that's definitely a classic. Good one. That's a good one.
Pretty solid choice, if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the deep dive. And we didn't really plan it this way, but that's kind of a good segue to what the band we're going to be talking about, or the groups we're going to be talking about for this. So as we mentioned, it saved one band's career. And it really brought the other group, I think, into the mainstream in such a huge way. And there's no way you didn't know this song in the day.
No way.
Yeah.
So Tony had already mentioned the Beastie Boys album was the second album to go platinum. That second rap album, I should say, to go platinum. So this deep dive that we're doing right now is actually the first rap album to go platinum. And it is Walk This Way by Run-DMC and Aerosmith. We're going to talk about what it did for the culture, what it did for Aerosmith's career, what it did for Run-DMC's career, and what it did for rap and rock and roll. Where were you at then, Tony?
I think about that song. I was not a huge Aerosmith fan. Like, I mean, I knew the singles that got played on the radio. I got friends who love them, and they were always like, I can't believe you don't like Aerosmith. And I said, I like them. You know, they're okay. But when this happened, this was such a different thing because on top of the song being so great, the video. I mean, because I was glued to MTV, you know, in 1986 or whatever. And this was so big. This video was so big. I mean, MTV played it like twice an hour.
Twice an hour. Yeah.
Which is insane. Yeah. So I think about, you know, I guess, last part of high school going into college and this song being so big. And culturally, you know, I had friends who, because I listened to some rap when I was young, and I liked Run-DMC. I think I had their first album. This, though, like people who had never listened to rap before, you'd hear that coming out of their car. Right. Because, you know, they found a way to mix this thing. And I have great memories of that song just being on the radio all the time. And I didn't mind it, you know, on MTV all the time. I didn't mind it. It was great.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the album, which I'm sure most people know that it was a remake of the original version of Walk This Way by Aerosmith, which they released in 1975. It was written by Steven Tyler and Joe Perry, who are the lead singer and the guitar player. It was on their Toys in the Attic album in 1975, and it was released and it reached number 10 on Billboard. So after that album, Aerosmith, I think they kind of, you might remember more than me, because I'll be honest, before this remake, I didn't know who the hell Aerosmith was. I had never heard of them. My music taste wasn't as broad as it is now, so I didn't know who Aerosmith was. So, I mean, were they super big back then, Tony, or were they?
In the 70s, I mean, they had, I think they had like 6 platinum hits in the 70s.
Oh, really? 6? Okay.
Yeah, because you figure Sweet Emotion, Dream On, Walk This Way, and I know there are others, but those are probably the 3 big ones that most people would know or heard on like classic rock radio.
Of course,
but then
as know those songs, right.
As the 70s ended and it was moving into the 80s, things were a little different. Punk rock had already been happening. New wave was starting to happen. And these guys just, on top of the music styles changing, the drugs, I mean, it just kind of ruined them.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of infighting in the band. You know, Joe Perry quit the band, and he ended up coming back later. So with all that going on, it just kind of left them in limbo, and they were just struggling. I mean, they were still trying to make music and get music out there. I know they had changed labels and stuff, but it just wasn't happening for them.
I think a couple of guys left the group. Joe and Brad Whitford. He was another band member who left.
Right.
In 81. So they released the album in 82. I think it was Rockin' a Hard Place, and it was a commercial failure. So they were on their way down. By 84, Perry and Whitford rejoined the group, but at that point, they were kind of seen as a washed-up 70s rock band.
Right.
Yeah, so nobody was really checking for Aerosmith at that time.
Yeah.
I think they released an album in 85 called Done with Mirrors, and it totally flopped. So they needed something. They needed something. And what's funny is, you know, at that time, as they were kind of washed up, you know, the rap and hip hop world, they were still kind of finding their way. You know, that was kind of a self-contained thing at that time. It hadn't really hit the mainstream yet. Yeah.
And that's what was so cool. So I read a story that when Rick Rubin, who produced Run-DMC's album, he called Aerosmith's manager because he was interested, and he came up not on his own with this idea. Some other people were involved, but he said, hey, I want to do this thing, and I got this rap group, and I want to get your, you know, Aerosmith involved and use one of their songs. And the manager's response was literally, what's rap? He didn't know what it was. He'd never heard of rap music. He had no clue what he was talking about. What the answer should have been was, it's the genre that's going to save your band's career and give them another 20 years of you know, making music and hits and stuff. But it was crazy.
Now, of course, now looking at it, that's hilarious. But at the time, I mean, I can kind of remember back then they were still saying rap was a fad and it wasn't going to last. It was going to be gone soon. So I kind of understand. I can kind of understand. It wasn't like it is now with the internet and, you know, videos all over the place. So I can understand why he didn't really know what rap was, being in the rock and roll world.
But it was interesting to me because I didn't know this. Run-DMC was super familiar with Aerosmith's music.
Right, yeah.
Because Jam Master Jay was using Walk This Way on the deck.
Right.
And, you know, they were rapping over it even when they were kids. So it was cool to me. Yeah. But what's funny, so they knew the music and they liked it. But when it came time to actually make this happen, I think it was Run that said, let me find I'm just quoting here. There's going to be some language. But he said, he called the lyrics hillbilly gibberish, country bumpkin bullshit. So it wasn't like all smooth sailing. Even when they got in the studio, they were still kind of like, I don't know. But I mean, they made it work.
I think at the time, that's what I thought about rock and roll too. What is this?
I'm sure. Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, what is he talking about, man? And
Right.
Because it's not, when you hear that, some songs are, they tell a story and it means something. This song, it's like, it's got a good beat, but it's like, what is Steven Tyler even doing right now? So I kind of get that. But you got to love the genius of Rick Rubin and seeing something and having this idea and really, I mean, creating a kind of a whole subgenre of music.
Yeah.
By doing this,
Yeah.
He called some guy who used to be like an NYU radio DJ that he knew, and he said, hey, I need a white rock song that can be turned into a rap song. Then there was an editor at Spin Magazine who I guess dated that DJ for a while, and she also has a claim on this. She goes, I kind of was involved in this too. Don't let them tell you that they did it all without me, because she took the cassette of Run-DMC from Rick Rubin and actually gave it to Aerosmith and said, these guys could be your saviors. These guys, they want to do something with you.
Yeah.
And so it's wild how that stuff works all behind the scenes.
If you remember, though, Rick Rubin was always trying to incorporate rock and roll with rap, because before Walk This Way, Run DMC had King of Rock, which was heavy guitar, rock and roll elements. And then they had Rock Box, I think was the other one.
Yeah.
I think actually Rick Rubin, he also produced a song for Beastie Boys before that used, what was the name of that group? Was it AC/DC? What's the album? Is it Back in Black?
Back in Black?
I think Beastie Boys used, I have to look into that, but.
Yeah. Well, I know they used Zeppelin on She's Crafty. So, I mean, he definitely had a flair for that kind of stuff. Steven Tyler, when they gave him that cassette, he knew what rap was. Like, he knew about rap music, mostly because he goes, I would go down in New York and score drugs. And the neighborhoods I was going into, everybody was playing it because that's where it was popular. And not just on the streets generally, not like where they sell drugs. And he said, I used to buy cassettes from these guys for a couple of bucks because I wanted to hear more about what they were doing.
Yeah.
But he said, but I guess Joe Perry had no clue. He's the same as the manager. Rap music. What is rap music? And his, at the time, 13-year-old stepson kind of educated him. He's like, oh, dude, you got to, and he would like play him some stuff. Because it's not like it is now. I mean, we think about how if I want to show my kids something or if they want to show me something, we jump on the internet.
Oh, yeah. It's right there.
Yeah, there it is. But this is the dark ages of the 80s. And it's like, if you wanted, you had to have the music in your hand to be able to show somebody else. And then once he heard some of it, he was like, all right. I mean, he wasn't like super excited, but he was like, okay, well, I guess we can do this. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, this was so early. I was still sneaking to listen to that kind of music in my house. I wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
I mentioned that before. Yeah, so that was like, I think it was recorded. No, it was recorded in March of 1986 in New York. And it was funny because they kind of did it in a hurry. They did it in one day. And Aerosmith was paid $8,000 for that day. $8,000.
Hey, I'd take
a lot of drugs for us.
I was going to say that's a dangerous thing to hand over to $8,000 to a couple of drug addicts. Hey, thanks guys, we really appreciate the work, because they only needed Steven Tyler and Joe Perry. They didn't need the rest of the band. Right. So
maybe I don't know. Why weren't the other two guys in the video? The other band members, do you know?
I honestly don't know. It's an Aerosmith song. I guess they figured since those guys had no hand in writing it.
Yeah, maybe that makes sense. Yeah.
And for the video, they just wanted the two guys who were the kind of the face, of Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Who everybody knew. I don't know.
Right.
Could have been budgetary. Could have been, we don't want to pay everybody else. We just want these two guys. Who knows? It's usually about money. Almost always.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I don't know that to be. I don't know for sure. Somebody might, if you know why they didn't use the rest of the band.
Put it in the comments, please.
Yeah, let us know. Educate us.
Please.
We kind of jumped around on this history because the story's so interesting. But when Rubin called the guy at Geffen Records, which was their label at the time, John, I think Kalodner, I think that's how you pronounce it. He was like, like you mentioned, Smitty, Done with Mirrors was a flop. They were kind of like, what are we going to do here? They got nothing going on.
Yeah.
And that's why he took the meeting with Rick Rubin, because Rick Rubin at that time, he's a young guy, he's a kid.
Yeah, he was in college. Yeah.
He's running Def Jam out of his dorm room.
Right.
And the guy said he took the meeting and went to meet with Rick. And he said, I'm in this dorm room of this kid. He said, and you would think, no way. He said, but when he explained to me how he was doing this and what he wanted to do, he was incredibly well-spoken, clearly had a very strong vision of how this song should be. And I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. And it just, all those pieces fell together, and they made this incredible thing. And again, it was so funny. Run-DMC didn't want to release it as a single. Rick Rubin even said, I didn't think it was going to be a single.
Yeah.
I just thought it'd be something cool to do. I mean, can you imagine if they had not been a single? Aerosmith probably wouldn't even talked about it anymore.
Literally changed the course of their career. After the success of Walk This Way, they released an album in '87 called Permanent Vacation, and that sold 10 times more than the previous record they released before Walk This Way. So yeah, they were to the moon after that.
Oh, it was huge. I remember, again, when that album came out, going back to MTV, they were all over MTV again. And you know, it was the resurgence of their career. It was incredible. And you figure Walk This Way was the first, what, I guess it peaked at number 4. So it was higher than the original version.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it was the first hip hop single to get to the top 5 on the Hot 100.
Crazy.
So that's, I mean, some pretty big history there. Obviously, Run-DMC at that point, they were already kind of on their way, but that shot them into the mainstream.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a huge way. It gave Aerosmith, as you said, saved their career. But I think maybe the best part of it was it finally gave the rest of America who wasn't sure what rap was, like Aerosmith's manager, a look at that. And it started becoming part of the mainstream culture. And then suddenly now, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. You get kids beyond the streets of New York and LA and those big cities. Now they're going, ooh, I like this. And I mean, that's great. I mean, anything that can bring an art form like that into the mainstream is awesome.
Another little fact, Run-DMC was the first group. After that, they were the first rap group to be featured on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. That's just a little fun fact.
I did not know that.
I remember distinctly, that song was super huge. I mean, we didn't have cable, but whenever I would go over to my friend's house, I just remember we sit there for hours waiting for the video to come on. Like you said, they were playing it like twice an hour, which is crazy.
And it's cool too, because like for people who maybe weren't rap fans and they didn't know hip hop, you see Walk This Way on MTV, you hear the song, so you're like, I'm going to buy this album. Now, sometimes when you do that, and you remember this, Smitty, you save up your money and you go out and buy a record or a cassette based off of one song that's a huge hit. And then you turn it on and it's like, this sucks. Everything else on the record's terrible.
Right.
But man, you look at Raising Hell, Peter Piper, It's Tricky, My Adidas, Walk This Way,
Mary,
You Be Illin'. I mean, it's just filled with hits. I mean, this album is incredible.
Yeah. Oh, You Be Illin'. Oh, I love that song.
Right? I'm sure Aerosmith has said it a million times since then, but thank you, Run-DMC, for saving their career and giving us that music, man.
Absolutely.
That is killer. All right. Well, so as we've said before, we had to have the main things that we do on the show like that and the A to Z, and then we have other little things that we want to kind of mix in to keep it interesting. And it's also something, I think, because music is so greatly tied to memory.
Yeah. You
hear a song and you immediately can place, oh man, I remember the first time I heard that song, or I remember what I was doing. My baby was being born, or I was, whatever, who knows what. And so this is just simply, where were you? And we'll talk about either a big album or a song or something, and maybe share some memories about where we were the first time we heard it or became aware of it. And we want you to do that too in the comments. Let us know. Or you might go, I remember where I was because I was throwing that album away. I hate that group. Who knows what the situation might be? I don't know.
Right.
But this is a good one. This week, back in the day, an Irish band released the album that propelled them from beyond successful to superstardom. Icons, legends, whatever. Those words get used a lot.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah, but I'm gonna pull a Smitty here, and I actually have 2 copies of this album.
So you did it, 2 copies.
Yeah. But they're different. See, so I got the old school. U2, Joshua Tree. That's my OG from 1987 version.
Okay.
And then I've got the remastered double as well. Same cover, so you can't really tell.
Now,
anyway.
I would pull out my copy. I don't have one.
You don't seem like a U2 guy to me.
No, don't get me wrong. They've had some songs over the years. I was like, okay, that's a nice tune. But I do definitely remember where I was when I first heard U2, Joshua Tree.
Okay.
I had a friend in school. Like I said, I had a very diverse group of friends. White guy, Tommy, a buddy. Anyway, he was a huge U2 fan. I didn't know much about him. I just remember he would play constantly that song, I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For.
Oh, yeah.
Which I love that song. I'm not going to lie. At first, when I heard it, I was like, what is this, Tommy? Like, can we put on some, anything?
Something besides this.
Yeah. Put on Walk This Way. Anything. But it grew on me. So that one was probably my favorite off the album. But it had a few more songs that I did like.
I got into U2. I wasn't there for like the first couple albums. I hadn't gotten into that type of music yet. But when they released War, which is the album that has New Year's Day and Sunday Bloody Sunday, 2 of the kind of early big songs that got played on MTV a lot, it's like, oh man, I like these guys. And so that's where I kind of picked up on it. So I already liked U2. I was a fan. Okay. And what I find with a lot of fans of U2, or just people in general, they really liked them early on. And then a lot of them now just feel like Bono is insufferable.
Really?
They just don't like him.
Now, what is that? What do you think that is?
I think he's a very, I don't know what's the word. I don't want to say egomaniacal, but he's definitely got a big personality, and he does have a big ego, and he's very vocal about a lot of things. And I think he just rubs people the wrong way.
Okay.
And some, maybe, I don't know, maybe you can, if you don't like Bono, you can explain in the comments why you hate Bono.
Yeah.
I personally think he is incredibly talented, and I think he's dynamic on stage. I mean, he's great live. But I'm a fan, so, you know, I don't see maybe what the hate is. But I do remember this. I was in college, and I was on the radio. I mean, I started my career in radio when I was still in school. And one of the best parts of doing that is, I mean, they send you free stuff at the radio station. So, you know, these things, they'd send us the stuff we're going to play, but then we'd also get extra copies. And, you know, it's not a big staff. So I took home, I think, a CD copy. I think I got this on CD. And I was like, whoa. And Where the Streets Have No Name, which is the album opener, I love. And that one, that's the video they did where they kind of copied the Beatles, where they did the rooftop performance.
I remember that.
So they did that one. I love that song. Still haven't found what I'm looking for. It's actually one of my least favorite songs on the record.
Really?
I liked it. It just wasn't, it was like, okay. But I think the first song I heard, and I know where I was sitting in a chair, not unlike this one, behind a microphone, not unlike this one. I played it on the radio, and that was the first time I heard it. And I just kept my headphones on the whole time, because not only is the song just great, the lyrics are great, but musically, it's so simple. I just thought it was a beautiful piece of music, and I was like, man, I love this. And, you know, then going through the rest of the record, you know, I liked what it was. It was their kind of love song to America. I was in college playing it on the radio. And then, you know, when you're in the radio business, when you leave your job and you still want to listen to the music that you played on the radio that day, it must be pretty good.
It's got to be.
Because after that point in my career, most of the time I would leave my job and not even come close to wanting to play. I was like, I had to hear that song 3 times today, just on my shift. You know, people complain, I've heard that song too much. Yeah, imagine not being able to switch the channel. That's my world. So where were you the first time you heard U2, Joshua Tree, or a song from it?
If I'm correct, I think it won Album of the Year at the Grammys that year.
Yeah, probably.
That would have been 88 Grammys. Yeah, I think it won Album of the Year. Yeah.
I didn't do my research on the Grammys, but that certainly wouldn't surprise me, because it was just a monster. Such a big album.
It was everywhere.
And again, that's where the Bono hate started, I think, with this album, because I think it was too much for people. They're everywhere. And he's just talk.
Okay. Yeah, because truthfully, if you think about it, I mean, me not being a huge fan, when you say U2, of course, I think of him, because that's the only person I ever see.
Right.
And I think there's one other guy, I can't remember his name, that's always with him.
The Edge is the guitar player.
Edge. Right. Those two, but he never talks. I've never heard his voice. So
yeah, he's for a while, like back in the day, he was not as much involved in that kind of stuff. But then later he did more interviews. He sings the backup. All the harmony vocals you hear are him.
Okay.
And then he's got on their follow up to this, the live album they did, partially live, partially not, called Rattle and Hum. There's a song on there called Van Diemen's Land that he actually sings lead on, and I think did a really nice job. He's got a nice voice. So yeah, check that out.
He's got his shot, huh? Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, U2, love him or hate him, I just think that album is one of the greatest albums, and it's those kind of albums and songs, I think, that connect people and go. And again, whether you like it or not, you know where you were probably when you heard that or saw the video.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's our episode for today.
That's it.
We learned a lot, I think. Thank you for the education, Smitty, on some of the Run-DMC stuff I didn't know. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance, give us a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share with other music lovers. Say, hey, these guys are getting something off the ground.
Yeah.
Let's support them. Make sure you give us feedback, write a review, all the things that you're supposed to do. This is your call to action.
Tell us what you'd like to see us do.
Yeah, you just open it up to what I'd like to see you do. Stop making this podcast. I can already see what the a-holes are going to do. That's fine. It's no problem. So next episode, when we come back, not next week, but the next, or every other week, we've got our Tony and Smitty A to Z. Will be on the letter C. I already have my artist picked out for this one.
I have no idea.
It's a no-brainer for me. Anybody who knows me probably can guess.
I think I could guess. I think I could guess for you.
So that's happening. And then we also have an incredible deep dive, just an amazing talent. He rose to fame as a lead singer of a band. And sadly, he never really kind of got the credit when he was with that band.
Yeah.
Because of the band's name.
Yeah, exactly.
And that all kind of led to him leaving the band and doing a solo career. And he was having huge success there. I mean, he was going to be the next, I think, gigantic thing.
Oh,
and
without a doubt.
And because he was already big in the soul and R&B world, I feel like he was on the edge of that mainstream where everybody was just like, whoa.
He was on his way.
And then something happened in his life and it changed everything. He is I think both a fascinating, exciting, but also tragic figure in music.
Real interesting stuff coming up.
Yeah. And if you like mysteries and you like conspiracies and you're like, there's a lot of that. A lot of that. Yeah. That'll be coming up. And then we also are going to do something, another new feature, the song behind the sample.
Song behind the sample. Yes. I love it.
And the cool thing about samples is I think a lot of people just assume, well, if it's a sample, it's probably a rap song or a hip hop song. Everybody did this. I mean, I learned something the other day on one of my music stories. Yes, 90125, the song Owner of a Lonely Heart that Trevor Horn produced.
Yeah.
It very well could be the first rock song that ever used a sample because he pulled a tiny little sample and he processed it a lot from a song from the 70s. So this particular one, not every sample story is a friendly affair. Sometimes things don't go the way that they should. And in this case, somebody had to go to court or threatened to go to court to get paid. But it's a great story and great songs.
Yeah. So make sure you tune in for that one.
Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. And we will be back soon.
Thank you.
Hope you will join us for that.
And remember, no matter the genre, no matter the decade, music is the glue that keeps us together.
Stay glued, stay connected. We'll see you next time.